Liu Sheng woke up and found that he had traveled with his own villa until the end of the Ming Dynasty. At the same time, there is an extra back door at home, but it leads to North America. Keywords of the novel. Room through the end of the Ming Dynasty, back door to North America without pop-ups at the beginning, room through the end of the Ming Dynasty, back door to North America at the beginning. Download the full text, room through the end of the Ming Dynasty, back door to North America at the beginning. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Qianmen Tongdaming, 13th year of Chongzhen reign. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Qianmen Tongdaming, 13th year of Chongzhen reign. After many days of anxiety, Liu Sheng finally had a good sleep last night. He didn't set the alarm clock and slept until he naturally woke up. Opening my eyes, I found the room pitch black. Is it still light? Thinking so, Liu Sheng touched his phone and looked at it. Above shows 9:43 a.m. Shouldn't it be so dark at this point? Liu Sheng got up and casually turned on the bedside lamp, only to find that it was not on. Power off. With a slight frown, Liu Sheng turned on his phone to light up, went to the bedroom window, pulled open the curtains, and couldn't help but widen his eyes, revealing a look of surprise. I saw my phone and flashlight shining on me, and surprisingly, all the rocks outside the window were tightly pressed against the glass. With a bad premonition, Liu Sheng took out a pry bar from under the bed and opened the door. His family is considered a villa-style mansion, with 3 floors above ground and 1 floor underground, and a small courtyard attached. He slept in the master bedroom on the 2nd floor. When he left the master bedroom and went to the small living room outside, what he saw was still pitch black. At this moment, Liu Sheng vaguely heard the sound of water droplets outside the house, except for this silence. That is to say, he once served in the special forces, and if he were an ordinary person, he would probably be afraid. Liu Sheng looked at several windows in the hall without curtains, and found that the glass was also tightly pressed against rocks. He opened the south door of the small living room and arrived at the eave-style balcony on the 2nd floor. Despite some speculation, he was still shocked by the scene before him. Because the outside of the balcony is also surrounded by rock walls, which seem to have been cut off by huge sharp tools, forming a vertical stone wall just outside the balcony. Isn't my house locked up in the mountains? After this idea suddenly appeared in his heart, Liu Sheng immediately carried a crowbar and went downstairs with his phone. Arriving at the large living room on the 1st floor, carefully opening the door and shining a flashlight outwards, Liu Sheng's pupils contracted slightly before taking a relaxed breath. Fortunately, the 1st floor gate was not blocked by rocks, but was connected to a relatively spacious cave. It's just a winding and extending cave, I don't know where it leads. Liu Sheng immediately closed the door and locked it, quickly walked back upstairs and entered a room next to the master bedroom. I saw some weapons and armor placed in this room. There are various types of cold weapons, as well as bows and crossbows. Fong has several types of bulletproof vests, as well as several types of ancient armor. Liu Sheng quickly put on a bulletproof vest, an explosion-proof helmet, and tools such as a flashlight, military dagger, and dog-leg knife. Finally, he took a foldable crossbow he had assembled himself, and carried a prepared backpack before carrying the pry bar out. Stepping out of the door of the living room on the 1st floor and turning to look around, Liu Sheng realized that his small courtyard had disappeared. The 2nd floor of the building is completely immersed in the mountain, tightly sealed, as if 2 computer models were combined together. After checking in front of the gate, Liu Sheng couldn't even find a crack except for that cave. Without further delay, he explored the cave with curiosity, concern, and vigilance. Although the ground of this cave is rugged and uneven, it is quite spacious, with the narrowest point barely accommodating a small car, and the spacious area accommodating 2 cars. After walking nearly 100 steps, Liu Sheng finally saw the natural light, and in addition to moss, green plants such as wild grass began to appear in the tunnel. After walking more than 10 steps, Liu Sheng saw a hole in front of him that was mostly covered by weeds and shrubs. Liu Sheng hesitated for a moment and did not use a dog-leg knife to open the way. Instead, he used a crowbar to pry open weeds and shrubs and drill out. The fragrant scent of grass, trees, and soil rushed towards us, and the air was exceptionally fresh. The chirping of birds and insects echoed one after another, echoing with the gentle breeze in the forest. Not far away, there was also the clinking of a stream, interweaving into a natural melody that finally allowed Liu Sheng to relax a bit. Immediately, Liu Sheng took out his phone and looked at it, frowning uncontrollably. It's strange. Even in the deep mountains and forests, there shouldn't be no signal at all, right? Looking around, Liu Sheng was ready to climb up a nearby high place and try again. He has rich experience in hiking, off-road driving, and survival. Although the mountains and forests in front of him are full of strange rocks and cliffs, they do not leave him with nowhere to go. Not long after, Liu Sheng climbed to the top of the mountain where the cave was located. Apart from realizing that his phone still had no signal, he saw another scene that shocked him. Surprisingly, a section of his roof emerged from this peak. At high altitudes, there is about a foot or more, while at low altitudes, there are only a few inches. The sets of solar panels covered on the roof stand out against the pure natural scenery of the surrounding peaks. After regaining his senses, Liu Sheng estimated the position of the lower entrance and the height of the peak, and found that his villa, embedded in the mountain, did indeed have a roof higher than this peak. This woman is really... Liu Sheng didn't even know what to say. After circling around his own roof, he felt fortunate again. Fortunately, the roof and solar panels are not damaged at all, and they are located at the highest point of this peak. If it were in a low area, during a heavy rain, these solar panels might all be submerged immediately. Liu Sheng stood at the peak, took out a military telescope from his backpack, and looked around. I saw almost primitive mountains and forests surrounding me for 4 or 5 miles, and the scenery was quite beautiful. Unfortunately, there was no human habitation. Not even the common cement roads and cables in many mountain and forest scenic spots, and there was not a signal tower. Did I go abroad or on a different planet? For a moment, Liu Sheng's mind was filled with many speculations. After paying attention to the plants around him, Liu Sheng felt that it was unlikely for him to go to another planet. Because the surrounding plants are all from Earth, to be precise, they are very similar to the vegetation in the Central Plains region of the Great Xia Kingdom. Looking further away, Liu Sheng saw several light cigarettes. The best viewing distance of his telescope is 1 kilometer, and the farthest one can see 3,000 meters away, but the view is relatively blurry. Therefore, he decided to go down the mountain and explore the source of the light smoke. Liu Sheng's journey was quite fast. In less than an hour, he finished walking the mountain road with a curved distance of nearly 10 miles and arrived at a natural village that was 5 or 6 miles away from the cave in a straight line. Seeing the buildings in the village and the attire of the villagers, Liu Sheng was once again surprised. Because most of the houses in this village are thatched earth embryo houses, and there are only 2 brick and tile houses, which are still traditional green bricks and tiles. The villagers are dressed in ancient costumes. He didn't think it was any ancient village tourist attraction or a film and television attraction. Because there are only about 30 households in this village, and there is no cement road around, not to mention, not a single electric pole can be seen. Liu Sheng has also read some online novels in his spare time, especially with a preference for historical online literature. At this point, he couldn't help but think. I probably haven't traveled through time, have I? He did not venture into the village to inquire, but patiently lurking outside the village. When Liu Sheng saw a farmer returning to the village alone, he jumped out to stop him and ask questions. Unexpectedly, when the farmer saw him, he was so scared that he ran straight into the field. Liu Sheng had no choice but to use a dog-leg knife to intercept the other person. After being intercepted, the farmer, who was in his 30s and 40s, fell to his knees with a thud and narrowly avoided being injured by a dog-leg knife. "Brave man, spare your life. Brave man, spare your life." The farmer's voice trembled as he begged for mercy, using a dialect from the Hunan-Hubei region that Liu Sheng could basically understand. He then said in Mandarin, "Don't be afraid. I'll ask you a few questions, you're good to answer, and I'll let you go." The farmer saw that although Liu Sheng was dressed strangely, his face looked quite young and he seemed to be speaking Northern Mandarin, so he reluctantly calmed down and no longer begged for mercy. Liu Sheng asked, "Where is this? What year is it now?" Although the farmer had little knowledge, he still felt strange upon hearing this question, but dared not refuse to answer. Returning to the hero, this is Xiaoli village in Qianmen Mountain. It has been 13 years since Chongzhen. In the 13th year of Chongzhen, did I travel with the house until the end of the Ming Dynasty? Liu Sheng was momentarily shocked. Although he had read many historical novels, he never expected to encounter such a strange thing. "Sir, can you let me go now?" the farmer asked cautiously. Liu Sheng waved his hand, and the farmer, as granted amnesty, quickly got up to run back to the village. "But I didn't want my legs to soften and I couldn't get up for a while." Liu Sheng smiled and reached out to pull him up. "Thank you, hero." After thanking him, the farmer found that Liu Sheng was holding onto one of his arms and didn't let go, afraid that his legs would almost fall to the ground. "What is your name?" returned to the hero, young Li Chongzhen. "Do you have any extra men's clothes at home? If so, I can exchange them with you." Upon hearing this, Li Chongzhen nervously and hesitantly said, "I only have a few tattered clothes at home, which may not catch the eye of the hero." "How about I help the hero ask Li Fuzi at the east end of the village?" Liu Sheng smiled and said, "No need, just bring one of your tattered clothes over." Li Chongzhen nodded reluctantly and said, "I understand." After finishing speaking, he was about to leave, but was stopped by Liu Sheng. "Li Chongzhen, be honest and bring your clothes. Don't play any tricks, you won't be at a disadvantage. Otherwise." At the end, Liu Sheng waved his hand and with a dog-leg knife, he cut through a small tree on the side of the road with a baby's arm thick. "The little ones know, the little ones know." Li Chongzhen agreed in a frightened voice, his face turning pale. After receiving a signal from Liu Sheng, he quickly ran back to the village. Liu Sheng did not wait in place, but found a hidden place where he could see the spot and hid. The heart of guarding against others is indispensable. The farmers of Qianmen Mountain in the late Ming Dynasty may be simple, but they may also be poor, evil, and unruly. Although he was confident that all the people in this small village would come out and he could retreat, he was unwilling to take that step. Liu Sheng waited for over a quarter of an hour, and just as he was considering whether to enter the village directly, he saw Li Chongzhen running out of the village with a piece of clothing. Seeing that there was no one else behind Li Chongzhen, Liu Sheng appeared from his hiding place. Arriving at the path, Liu Sheng took out 10 unpackaged military compressed biscuits and handed them to Li Chongzhen. "This is a compressed biscuit, it's very anti-hunger. Half of it is boiled in water and can last for a day's worth of food. Try not to eat it dry or too much at once." After Liu Sheng finished speaking, he took the clothes from Li Chongzhen's hand, stuffed the biscuits into his hand, and turned around and plunged into the mountains and forests. Li Chongzhen returned home holding 10 compressed biscuits, and when he saw his wife and son waiting for him to eat, he couldn't help but feel guilty. "What's wrong?" asked his wife Sunday. "I gave the person my clothes, but only got 10 small pieces of pancakes in exchange. This pancake is very anti-hunger, half cooked and eaten can last for a day. I'm afraid I've been deceived." Li Chongzhen placed the compressed biscuits on the table and felt even more guilty when he thought that his wife had only lost one of the 3 ready-made clothes she had worked hard to make for him. Sun sighed when she saw that the pancake, although it looked dense, was small. Although grain has become more expensive these days, the value of such a small 10-piece pancake is far less than that of a piece of clothing, even if the clothing has been patched up quite a bit. Li Huzi, who was 8 years old next to him, smelled a faint aroma of noodles and couldn't help but pick up a compressed biscuit to nibble on. However, he only nibbled on some powder, and then his eyes lit up. "Dad, Mom, this pancake is sweet." Sweet. Sugar is still a luxury item for ordinary people these days, so sweet foods are very expensive. Poor mountain people like Li Chongzhen may not be willing to buy a little during holidays. So, when their son said that the pancakes were sweet, both of them showed surprise. Son wanted to break off a small piece of dough to taste, but found that it couldn't be broken for a while, and his nails could only leave a mark on it. "This pancake is really hard." Afterwards, Son brought a kitchen knife and asked Li Chongzhen to take action before slowly cutting the pancake in half and tasting each half. "It's really sweet." The couple's eyes lit up, just like their son who was gnawing on compressed biscuits, showing a happy smile. Seeing his son nibbling on half of the pancake in a short while, Li Chongzhen suddenly remembered the last instruction from the strange person, so he quickly snatched the pancake from his son's hand. Li Huzi suddenly looked aggrieved. He had never eaten such a delicious pancake before, and he didn't expect to be taken away by his father before he finished eating a piece. Son couldn't help but wonder, what is the leader doing? Li Chongzhen said, "That person probably didn't lie to me. He said this cake is anti-hunger, not easy to eat dry, and can't be eaten too much. The tiger is still young, don't eat it bad." Upon hearing this, Son's heart moved and he said, "If this pancake really resists hunger and adds sugar, it would be the best thing. Didn't you always want to send Huzi to study at Li Fuzi's place? Sending a few pieces of this pancake as a bundle for repair may not be possible." Liu Sheng returned to the cave and saw that the house was pitch black, so he prepared to activate the solar power supply system. His villa is equipped with a smart home system, which was originally able to replace the power supply system through voice control or mobile phone control. But now that the external power supply system is no longer working, the network is gone, and the home LAN has not been set up in time, he can only manually replace it in the independent distribution room on the basement floor. There are 2 entrances and exits on the basement level, with the front one located in the courtyard, mainly used for entering and exiting vehicles. The latter one is located on the west side of the corridor on the first floor and can only be used for walking, mainly leading to the distribution room, storage room, and other places. Liu Sheng opened the back door of the first floor, and with a flash of his flashlight, he saw that the back was blocked by rocks that seemed to be cut by sharp blades, just like the balcony on the second floor. Immediately, Liu Sheng noticed an abnormality. The rock wall is facing the front door of the living room, and surprisingly, there is an extra broken door. Liu Sheng walked over carefully and found that the door was made of unknown wood, simple and unadorned, but only half of it was broken. He looked out through the large hole on the door and couldn't help but shrink his pupils. This door is not a rock, but a forest with tall trees. Just as Liu Sheng was shocked and stunned as he looked at the forest outside the door, the 5 wolves seemed to have overlooked the door and walked past his field of vision one after another. This wolf has a similar appearance to a gray wolf, but its body size is noticeably smaller, and its head is somewhat similar to a fox. Liu Sheng has extensive experience in the wild and knows many animals. Seeing these wolves made him even more surprised, and he couldn't help but murmur, "Is this a coyote?" New books for collection, for follow.up reading. Collection and follow.up reading are very important, please appreciate and support readers. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Back Door to North America, Test Space Door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Back Door to North America, Test Space Door. Liu Sheng was surprised because the coyote also has a nickname. North American Wolf. Because on Earth, coyotes are a unique species of animal in North America, with a range of activities ranging from Alaska to Panama. They occasionally eat carrion and plants while eating meat. They are cunning and fierce, and are highly adaptable canines. Earlier, Liu Sheng discovered that he had traveled with his house until the end of the Ming Dynasty. Now, he found half a broken door at the back door and saw a North American coyote outside the door. Liu Sheng couldn't help but have a bold guess. After regaining his senses, he immediately ran to find 2 iron clips for making traps and placed them behind the broken door. Then he went to the underground level and started the solar power supply system. There are several large refrigerators at home that store important supplies. If there is no power supply for a long time, the shelf life of the supplies will be affected. Therefore, after starting the solar power supply system, Liu Sheng only supplied power to the refrigerator and several other necessary facilities, and all other electrical appliances were temporarily turned off. After adding a large bag of compressed biscuits and a few bottles of energy drinks to his backpack, Liu Sheng, wearing his previous outfit, arrived at the broken door on the back porch of the first floor. Taking a deep breath, he opened the door and walked out. Entering the forest, Liu Sheng saw that there was no danger around him and immediately looked back. He walked out of this door, most afraid of not being able to go back. Because this door was not brought by his house, its origin is unknown, and it exudes strangeness. Looking back, Liu Sheng's heart sank instantly. Because there's no broken door behind him. Shouldn't it be impossible to go back? If he had to choose, Liu Sheng still felt more at ease staying in the late Ming Dynasty. Because his house was there, containing many of the supplies he had previously stored. More than half a year ago, his parents passed away in a car accident, and he returned to hold a funeral and inherit the inheritance. After completing the task, as long as he walks out of this house, he will inexplicably feel some anxiety in his heart. At first, this feeling was not serious, so he still returned to the army. As a result, he almost made a fatal mistake due to anxiety during a task. Afterwards, the psychologist of the unit conducted a psychological assessment on him and believed that he was not suitable to continue serving in the special forces, so he retired early. Returning home again, Liu Sheng's anxiety became increasingly severe. He checked the internet and found that his symptoms were somewhat similar to those of the doomsday delusional patients mentioned online. It is said online that as long as these people prepare for the end of the world, their anxiety will decrease or even disappear. So Liu Sheng also began to make various preparations for the end of the world. His family is not a wealthy family, and the inheritance he inherited from his parents is only tens of millions. Moreover, he cannot really spend all his money on a speculation. So, he just made some simple renovations to his villa building, reserving some materials that may be needed for post-apocalyptic survival and future production and construction. However, he never expected that the end of the world would come, but he traveled through it. Looking back now, the feeling of anxiety immediately after leaving the house is probably a sign that one is about to cross over. As for why this situation occurred, it's not something he can figure out. Unable to see the broken door, although Liu Sheng's heart sank, he did not panic. He reached out with a hopeful hope and tried to break the door where it should be. Because he remembered a previous detail. When he saw those coyotes, the wolves seemed to have paid no attention to him breaking through and behind the door. Does this mean that although the broken door cannot be seen here, the door still actually exists? He reached in, swept aside, and touched the door frame. Liu Sheng's expression was joyful, and he immediately leaned his upper body over. Sure enough, he saw the wall of his house and the 2 iron clips under the broken door. Avoiding the iron clip and returning to the corridor behind the first floor, Liu Sheng breathed a sigh of relief. Immediately, he repeatedly tried several times to ensure that he could freely travel back and forth between the 2 sides of the door. Breaking the door did not cause any changes, so he confidently explored the forest outside the door. I don't know where this is in North America, and whether the time is consistent with that of Daming. Carefully exploring all the way, leaving behind hidden signs to prevent getting lost, Liu Sheng explored 4 or 5 miles south when he suddenly stopped and hid behind a big tree. There is a considerable river ahead, and there are many sparse trees. What made Liu Sheng choose to hide was a group of people with painted faces, dressed in animal skins and simple fabrics. These people are hunting an underage black bear by the river. Liu Sheng took out a telescope to observe carefully. I saw that these people have facial features that are somewhat similar to those of the Mongols, with weapons such as bows and arrows, long sticks, short sticks, battle axes, foreskin wooden shields, etc., but they are all made of wood, stone or bone and not metal. Native Americans. Liu Sheng has a judgment. As for the time, he can only be certain that it is not modern, or most likely before the 19th century. Due to the arrival of European colonizers, metal weapons and even firearms only appeared in the hands of North American Native Americans. Liu Sheng watched as these Native Americans successfully hunted half the size of the black bear and happily carried it away. He carefully followed behind. He needs to determine where these Native American tribes are and how far they are from where he came from. Liu Sheng followed these Native Americans downstream along the river for about 5 or 6 miles, and then saw a small Indian village. Outside the village, there is a simple wall made of wooden fences and stones, only about half a person high, which should be mainly used to defend against wild animals. Inside are houses made of stone and wood structures, not too big, about 50 or 60. Inside the wall, there are also irregular vegetable gardens, and outside the wall to the riverbank, there are large areas of corn seedlings, followed by sweet potato seedlings, and also some other seasonal North American crops growing. Obviously, these were all planted by the Native Americans in the village, but the planting methods were very rough and not much stronger than slash and burn cultivation. Not long after the Indian men who had hunted the black bear returned, a group of Native Americans with fishing nets and catch came back from outside. Afterwards, smoke from the kitchen rose one after another, and laughter and joy drifted through the entire Indian village. After observing for 1 or 2 hours, Liu Sheng did not receive any more useful information and silently withdrew from the forest. He has no intention of contacting these Native Americans for the time being. One thing is that they don't understand each other's language. Secondly, the Native Americans in this village are mostly unsure of which year they lived here. Under contact, he would at most ask if the other party had any contact with Europeans. Returning along the original path and approaching half a mile from the broken door, Liu Sheng tried his best to erase the traces of his passage. After returning to the house, more traps were set up in the corridor behind the first floor, which reassured him. Then he checked every part of the room again and did not find any other abnormalities before resting. He was too lazy to cook, so he took out a box of frozen dumplings from the kitchen refrigerator and prepared to eat them. The faucet turned on, and the water flow quickly decreased. After a while, there was no water left. He suddenly realized that the house had been inexplicably moved to Qianmen Mountain, and the water supply must have been cut off. There was a small stream more than 100 steps away from breaking through the door, but Liu Sheng was too lazy to fetch water, so he cooked dumplings with the pure water stored at home. While eating dumplings, Liu Sheng suddenly thought of something. If it was North America on the other side, when it was daytime on the Ming side, there was a high probability that North America would be right at night. But when he looked at the position of the sun in North America, it seemed that the time was not much different from that of Daming. Is it difficult to say that the door is not just a space door, but a time and space door? Did he also travel through time to a certain extent while traveling? Perhaps even. The other side is not in the 17th century of the late Ming Dynasty. Unable to figure it out for a moment, Liu Sheng could only attribute it to metaphysics. However, both sides are daytime and the specific times are similar, which saves him the trouble of dealing with the time difference. After eating dumplings, it was already past 5 p.m. and Liu Sheng stopped going out. Sitting on the sofa in the living room on the first floor, feeling the tranquility in the mountains, he pondered his plans for the future. It's probably impossible to travel back here inexplicably with the house. Besides, if we really count it up, perhaps we can live more exciting here than in modern times. If there really is a God who allows me to travel with my house until the end of the Ming Dynasty and gives me a gateway to North America, it must be asking me to do something meaningful. At the end of the Ming Dynasty, in the 13th year of the Chongzhen reign, it seems that Liu Sheng swept through Hunan and achieved great success in that year, right? What month did it come specifically this year? Liu Sheng can't remember clearly. He is just a fan of online novels. Although he has read many Ming Dynasty historical novels and remembers some historical figures, it is difficult for him to remember the specific time when something happened. I can go out tomorrow to inquire about Liu Sheng's sweeping situation in Hunan. What I should consider now is what I want to do and how to do it. Without any sense of anxiety, Liu Sheng felt that his mind was very clear at the moment. Since I came to the end of the Ming Dynasty, I definitely wanted to try to change history, and even change the fate of the entire country and nation. If I were naked, even if I came from a special military unit, it would be difficult for me to change the historical trend at this time. I definitely cannot join the Qing dynasty, and joining the Ming court or the peasant army is the best choice. But now I have traveled with the house, which houses various supplies prepared for the end of the world, as well as a time and space gate leading to North America. In this situation, I don't need to make do with the Ming court or the peasant army. I can do it alone. As a man, who hasn't thought about building their own power or even a country. Not to mention Liu Sheng, who has served in the military, is a young and ambitious person with some national sentiments. After clarifying what to do, Liu Sheng's heart became more stable and he immediately thought about specific measures to take. The next morning, Liu Sheng caught several more rabbits for the experiment. He has always been cautious and meticulous in his work. Although he can freely travel back and forth between time and space, he also wants to see if others can do it. If the person cannot be found temporarily, we can only wrongly ask the rabbits to help with the experiment. In this experiment, Liu Sheng discovered a pattern. Whether it's the rabbits from Daming or North America, he must grasp them in order to pass through the time and space gate. If it were in North America, he would let go of the rabbit, and even if it ran towards the direction of the time and space gate, it would run to the open space ahead like there was no time and space gate. If you throw a rabbit over from Daming's side, it will bounce back like it hit a wall. As for plants, Liu Sheng has also experimented and can come over without his hands, and it doesn't look much different. As for whether other people also follow this pattern when passing through the space-time gate, it can only be determined after experimentation. In the afternoon, Liu Sheng disguised himself with Li Changgen's clothes as a coat, locked the doors and windows of the house, and set up some traps inside and outside the cave. He then carried his burden and walked down the mountain. Nearly an hour later, Liu Sheng arrived outside Xiaoli village again. He patiently hid outside the village and waited for half an hour, only to see his acquaintance Li Changgen. He immediately ran over and stopped him. Ah! The hero! Seeing Liu Sheng wearing his own clothes again, Li Changgen was still a bit scared and his legs were weak. Liu Sheng's height of 1.88 meters and strong physique put too much pressure on Li Changgen. Liu Sheng said, "I met yesterday. What are you afraid of? Let me ask a question, how can I get to the nearest market town?" Li Changgen breathed a sigh of relief and pointed to the dirt track outside the village, saying, "Follow the mountain road to the northeast for 4 or 5 miles, and you will find the Dashwiping village. The next day, there will be an episode, and tomorrow will be the perfect day for the market." Liu Sheng nodded and immediately carried a bundle on his back as he walked towards the big water bottle fortress. Li Changgen looked at Liu Sheng's tall figure and hesitated for a moment before shouting, "That big water bottle fortress is originally 100 households' residence. Be careful, hero. Thank you very much." Liu Sheng didn't look back and thanked him, walking away without stopping. The new book is in great need of collection and follow-up. Readers are kindly requested to turn the page to the end. Thank you. If there is a space gate written in the following text, it will be regarded as a time and space gate. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Entering the Big Water Bottle Fortress, Glass Cup Brings Wealth. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 3 Entering the Big Water Bottle Fortress, Glass Cup Brings Wealth. More than half an hour later, Liu Sheng saw the Big Water Bottle Fortress. This village is worthy of the word, big. The walls built with giant stones are more than 10 feet high, and the shape is not regular. Instead, they stretch along the undulating mountains, estimated to be 7 or 8 miles long. From Liu Sheng's perspective, in the late Ming Dynasty, as long as this village was well equipped and had over 1,000 soldiers, the enemy could not possibly break through with tens of thousands of soldiers as long as they did not have artillery. It is actually a dangerous place where one person is in charge and 10,000 people cannot escape. However, at this moment, no one could be seen on the wall of the village, but there were 2 soldiers dressed in tattered clothes at the west gate of the village. A tall and thin man leaning against the wall with a long gun, listless, the other person with a slightly fleshy face simply leaned against the wall and fell asleep. Liu Sheng looked for a while, but no one came in or out. Looking at the phone time again, it's only 4 p.m. in the afternoon. In late spring, it's still early before dark at this point. It's estimated that even if there are people working outside the village, it will take another hour to come back. After some thought, Liu Sheng walked towards the gate of the village. Stop, what are you doing? Feeling lethargic, Liu Sheng was stopped. The dozing soldiers also woke up and stood up leaning against the wall. Liu Sheng smiled and said, I went to the south to seek refuge with my relatives. I ran out of money on the way and wanted to enter the village to exchange some money. Do you have a pawn shop in this village? 2 soldiers from the garrison saw strangers and wanted to get some oil and water. It can be seen that he has a tall stature, speaks official language, has an extraordinary demeanor, but he dare not act rashly. The soldier who was dozing off said, there is only one pawn shop in the village, which is owned by 100 households. However, if you want to enter the village, you need to pay at least 5 won of gate tax. Liu Sheng said, Master Jun, I really don't have any money on me. Why don't you let me in first and pay taxes when I come out? Who knew you were going to the west or east gate when you came out? The soldier was a bit unhappy and then said, so, I'll take you to the pawn shop, and you'll pay the door tax immediately after you change the money. Upon entering the village, Liu Sheng discovered that there were numerous buildings in the center and by the walls, with most of the area being farmland, estimated to be several hundred acres. Everywhere in the fields, there are people working, but many of them are naked and skinny. The houses in the center of the village are noticeably better than those next to the walls, all built around a large pond. Arriving at a house under the guise of a pawn shop, the soldier stopped and said, this is the pawn shop. Go in. Liu Sheng was a bold expert. As he walked in, he saw an old man with gray hair dozing off against an L-shaped wooden cabinet. Liu Sheng came in and woke up. He looked up and asked, do customers want to pawn something? That's right. Liu Sheng nodded and took out a very ordinary transparent glass from his bundle, placing it on the counter. The old man suddenly regained his energy and carefully looked at the glass. He hesitated and said, is this the rumored Western glass bottle? The shopkeeper's good insight. Liu Sheng smiled quite unexpectedly. He knew that there were already many Western glass products flowing in during the Ming Dynasty, but he didn't expect a pawn shop shopkeeper in 100 households to recognize them. The old man stroked his beard and smiled, saying, I used to be in the hands of a pawn shop in the county town. I heard people say this thing. I wonder if the customer wants to pretend to be dead or alive with this glass bottle. Liu Sheng pretended to know the market situation and said, this colorless and transparent glass bottle was originally a rare treasure, but I urgently need money now and don't need much. I'll just die for 10 taels of silver. Although the shopkeeper knew that the glass bottle was precious and valuable, he was still amazed when he heard that Liu Sheng wanted 10 taels of silver. He said with a bitter face, guest, the small shop usually only pawns clothes and rough porcelain for the people around us, which are small businesses worth less than 100 won. I really can't make decisions on these 10 taels of silver big businesses. Can I ask the owner? Liu Sheng instinctively felt that asking the owner of this pawnshop, who is also the 100 households of this large water bottle village, to inquire about this matter might lead to unnecessary complications. But for one thing, he did need to exchange some silver, and for the other, he also wanted to test the reality of this 100 households, so he nodded and said, "Shopkeeper, go faster. The owner lives nearby and won't waste much time on the guests," the shopkeeper said as he walked out and said to the soldiers who were still outside the door, "Ma Jinshui, come to the store and help me accompany the guests." Speaking, with a wink, Ma Jinshui nodded before leaving. Ma Jinshui entered the store and asked, "Where do you come from, little brother?" It's no wonder Ma Jinshui called him that. Liu Sheng didn't have a beard, and although his skin tone leans towards antique bronze, it still looks similar to a young man in his 20s at this time. Liu Sheng said, "Coming from northern Jili." Ma Jinshui regained some energy and said, "Oh, I heard people say that Jiannu entered the bandits again 2 years ago and fought all the way to Shandong. I wondered if it's true or not." Liu Sheng sighed and said, "It's true, otherwise I wouldn't have to go south to seek refuge with relatives. I don't know when the Jiannu of this dog day will be eradicated." Liu Sheng shook his head secretly upon hearing this. The soldiers of the garrison in this small place were completely unaware of the overall situation of the world and hoped that the Ming court could eliminate Jiannu, but they didn't know that the Ming Dynasty would be gone in a few years. However, this person looks a bit gossipy, so he can take the opportunity to inquire about something first. "Does Junyi know about Li Zicheng?" "I naturally know, intruders. I've been to our Hunan province more than once before, but they've all been causing trouble in the northwest. We haven't seen them in our ruining mansion before." Tianmu Mountain in Hunan province is actually located at the border of Nanyang Prefecture and Ruining Prefecture, but it is administratively under the jurisdiction of Kaishan County in Ruining Prefecture. "How is Junyi doing now as a thief?" Liu Sheng asked obediently. Ma Jinshudo said, "Didn't the government issue a notice early, saying that they had exterminated the intruders in Nanyuan, Tongguan 2 years ago? Didn't you see it?" Liu Sheng was shocked upon hearing this. He remembered in history whether Li Zicheng fled to Shanglua Mountain with 13 or 17 cavalry, but he didn't expect the Ming court to issue a notice after this battle stating that Li Zicheng had died. However, upon careful consideration, the actions of the Ming court can to some extent stabilize people's hearts. After all, Li Zicheng was beaten down to only a few dozen people. Who would have thought that after more than a year, he would sweep across Hunan, making it difficult to control the situation? Liu Sheng wanted to ask more questions, but outside came a sound of footsteps, indicating that many people had come. Immediately, a chubby middle-aged man walked into the hall with the shopkeeper and 4 big men. The chubby middle-aged man only glanced at Liu Sheng, and his gaze was drawn to the glass bottle on the counter, revealing a clear greedy expression. He went up to pick up the glass bottle, rubbed it and looked at it carefully for a while, then angrily shouted, "What a thief! He stole the glass bottle from Mr. Huang's house in the county town and dared to take it as a pawn from this 100 households. He really fell into a trap." When he said these words, the 4 big men who came with him had already surrounded Liu Sheng. Liu Sheng smiled. He thought that these 100 households might face financial motives, forcefully lower prices, and even forcibly seize. Unexpectedly, the other party was so shameless that they would use any excuse to take action. It's also fortunate that Liu Sheng is not an ordinary person, otherwise he would have fallen here. When these people came in, Liu Sheng was vigilant. Seeing 4 people surrounding him, he immediately rushed towards the 100 households. The man closest to him struck with a straight punch, but he grabbed his wrist and used a grappling technique. With a click, he disabled one hand and pushed it down towards the other 2. Immediately, he approached the 100 households, took out a dagger with his right hand, and headed straight towards their throat. Everything happened between electricity, fire, and stones. Without any reaction, these 100 households were controlled by Liu Sheng. "Don't move around, my dagger is very sharp." Seeing Baihu trembling with fear, his body couldn't help but collapse, Liu Sheng said. Baihu finally regained his senses and trembled as he said, "Good man, spare your life." "Whose glass bottle is that?" Liu Sheng asked. "Of course it's yours, hero." Baihu's face was bitter. "I was deceived by the lord and wanted to take this treasure. As long as the hero can spare me, I will give you as much silver as you want. Let your people all go out. Get out, everyone get out of here." The 4 men who came with 100 households, the soldiers of the guard, the horses of Jin Shui, and the old shopkeeper who dared not look at Liu Sheng, all retreated upon hearing these words. After these people left, Liu Sheng punched 100 households and collapsed with a bow in their stomachs, then Ran went to close the store door. Then he pulled out a chair, found a place that was not easily attacked by crossbows outside the store, and sat down confidently. "I heard that the owner is the 100 households of this big water bottle village. How do you call them?" Baihu's belly was full of fat, and although Liu Sheng's punch caused him a lot of pain, it didn't cause much harm. He was worried about being beaten again and endured the pain, saying, "Ma Jinliang." It turned out to be Ma Baihu, disrespectful. Ma Jinliang's mouth twitched, feeling that Liu Sheng's words of disrespect were full of ridicule. "Do Ma Baihu know the latest news about Li Zicheng?" Liu Sheng asked again. Upon hearing these words, Ma Jinliang thought to himself, "Isn't this fierce thief the lost general of the intruder?" He didn't dare to ask, but only replied, "The Imperial Palace newspaper said that only 17 cavalry of the bandits escaped into Shanlua Mountain, which is considered to be destroyed." Liu Sheng couldn't help but feel disappointed that he didn't get any more news about Li Zicheng from Ma Jinliang. After thinking about it, he asked, "What is the name of Qianmen supervisor of the county? How is he after a few years in office?" Ma Jinliang said. "The name of the supervisor of the county is Kai Wending. He has been in office for more than 3 years. He is a man. I don't know much about people. I only heard that he is greedy. How many officers and soldiers are there in Runing?" Upon hearing this question, Ma Jinliang increasingly felt that this person was a traitor general or other bandit generals, but he dared not refuse to answer. Swallowing his dry throat, Ma Jinliang said, "Apart from some guards, the most important thing for Runing is the recruitment of troops under General Wang Yingtai. It is said that there are more than 1,000 war soldiers and 2,000 auxiliary soldiers. Where does Runing camp usually stay?" "Nature is the capital city of Ruyang." Liu Sheng nodded and looked at Ma Jinliang with a smile, asking, "How much does Ma Baihu think your head is worth?" Upon hearing these words, Ma Jinliang, who almost believed that Liu Sheng was a rebel general, was so frightened that he knelt down on the ground and cried, "Brave man, spare your life. I am willing to give you any amount of money, just for survival." The new book is in great need of collection and follow. Up. Readers are kindly requested to turn the page to the end. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Warm and hospitable Ma Baihu, buying people and hiring workers. Mao Jiaji. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 4. Warm and hospitable Ma Baihu, buying people and hiring workers. Mao Jiaji. An hour later, as the sun set in the west, Ma Jinliang, 100 households from Dashwiping village, struggled to carry 2 large shoulders and sent Liu Sheng out of the city. A dozen or so servants raised by Ma Baihu followed closely behind with dozens of guards, reluctant to part ways. Liu Sheng turned his head and smiled, "Ma Baihu, it seems that your subordinates don't want me to leave. Why don't I stay at your house for the night?" Although Ma Jinliang appears tall and fat compared to others around him, he is actually just over 1.7 meters tall, and his body is full of fat. Those 2 big shoulders were heavy, and after walking only the way from his house to the village gate, he was so tired that he was panting and sweating profusely. At this moment, after listening to Liu Sheng's words, he sweated even more on his forehead and quickly turned around to shout, "What are you all doing with me? Do you want to kill me? Go back to your own homes." The dozen or so servants holding weapons glanced at each other and had to retreat to the city fortress. As for those dozens of soldiers, most of them held agricultural tools in their hands and were purely called out to boost their momentum. As soon as Ma Jinliang's servants retired, they dispersed. Ma Baihu escorted Liu Sheng nearly 3 miles away. Seeing the sun setting and it was getting dark, he sat down on the ground and almost spilled the silver money from his wallet. He gasped for breath and said, "Master, I can't walk anymore. Let me take a break." Liu Sheng looked at him and shook his head. "Ma Baihu, you need to exercise your body. Otherwise, in the future, bandits will come and Jiannu will come. What will you do? Are you waiting to die, or will you join the bandits and slaves?" Ma Baihu was so tired that he didn't want to speak, but he felt that Liu Sheng's words were strange in his heart. Does this person refer to Li Zicheng as a traitor? Are they either subordinates of other bandit chieftains, or do they have a grudge against Li Zicheng? As for the matter of Jiannu's arrival, he never thought about it at all. He felt that even if Jiannu entered the bandits again, he might come to Hunan, but he could never reach the southernmost ruining prefecture. Liu Sheng saw that the sky was getting dark, and he was not prepared to let Ma Baihu waste any more time. He said, "Put down your wallet and go back." Ma Baihu was taken aback for a moment, then immediately put down his coat and kowtowed, "Thank you, hero." After knocking his head, it seemed as if he had regained strength and was about to leave. However, Liu Sheng shouted loudly from behind, "Ma Baihu should remember that promise letter and take it seriously." Ma Baihu's body trembled and froze upon hearing this, and it was only a few seconds before he quickened his pace and left. Liu Sheng smiled, picked up a bracelet in one hand, and quickly left. The bracelets in his hands weighed dozens of pounds each, and while Ma Baihu struggled to carry them, he carried them effortlessly. Inside are 500 taels of silver and dozens of guan copper coins used by Ma Baihu to purchase his glass bottle. In order to express that he would not regret this transaction, Ma Baihu even wrote a commitment letter, saying, "If there is any repetition, we will call the Chongzhen child to have no children or grandchildren, and he will not die easily." And he stamped his seal of 100 households on it, then pressed his handprint. Liu Sheng saw that Ma Baihu was full of sincerity, so he sold the precious glass bottle to him. After receiving the glass bottle, Ma Baihu wept with joy. Seeing that Liu Sheng's clothes were tattered and not fitting, he insisted on giving away a few good clothes, as well as matching socks, shoes, and hats. Ma Baihu's enthusiasm even made Liu Sheng feel ashamed of his initial idea. At first, he wanted to bully Ma Baihu and seek revenge for the poor people of Dashuoping's who were oppressed by him. Later on, I realized that if 100 households died, it was likely to disturb the local government, causing tension in the atmosphere of Qianmen Mountain and disharmony between the officials and the people, which was not conducive to what he needed to do in the future. So, I gave up. On the 3rd day of wearing the house. That is, in the 13th year of the Chongzhen reign of the Ming Dynasty, on the 8th day of the 4th month. This date was also obtained by Liu Sheng from Ma Baihu yesterday, which is consistent with modern dates, except that the lunar calendar is used here, more precisely the Ming Dynasty's Datong calendar. Although Chongzhen ordered people to combine Chinese and Western astronomical knowledge and compile a more advanced and accurate Chongzhen calendar, which is the mother book of the lunar calendar in later generations, it was not applied until the fall of the Ming Dynasty. The small place of Qianmen Mountain naturally uses the outdated Datong calendar. At 4 or 5 in the morning, Liu Sheng got up to wash up and had bread and milk for breakfast. After finishing, I changed into a new outfit with the clothes given by Ma Baihu yesterday. Wearing an indigo blue tang scarf, hat, on the head, a chu-colored wide avenue robe, and brown-gray high-top hiking boots on the feet. Inside, he was wearing modern underwear and a bulletproof vest, also known as stab-proof. This outfit may seem inappropriate at first glance, but there is no major problem. Dao Pao was a popular clothing among literati in the late Ming Dynasty, and it was normal for others to follow suit and wear a Dao Pao. As for the Tang napkin, it was a very common type of hat in the Ming Dynasty, with many styles. Shoes and short hair were indeed out of place with people at this time, but during the late Ming Dynasty, even if someone noticed them, Liu Sheng was not afraid. Besides, he didn't go to any big city to meet any officials this time, he just went to the Mao family gathering in the south of Qianmen Mountain. Originally, Liu Sheng wanted to go to the surrounding county town, but even the nearest Kaishan county town to Qianmen Mountain has a land of 40 to 50 miles. Secondly, he could only go to the nearby market town to take a look. This Mao family gathering was later known as Mao Family Town. In the early Ming Dynasty, due to its location on the official road from Tongbai County to Xinyang Prefecture in Nanyang, some people established hotels. Later, more and more people gathered here to make a living by buying and selling. Because many people have the surname Mao, they are also known as Maojiapu or Maojiadian. In the late Ming Dynasty, many towns appeared in the Huai River Basin, just like in the Jiangnan region. Due to the increase in commercial travel, Maojiapu also developed into a market town, so it was often referred to as Jiaji, abbreviated as Maoji or Maodian. Liu Sheng's home is about 20 miles away from Jiaji. He left around 5 o'clock in the morning and arrived at Jiaji around 8 o'clock. He found that there were surprisingly many people at the market, and upon closer inspection, it seemed that many of them were refugees. This reminded him of some scenes he had seen on the road before. Many streams and ponds were dry, and rivers and lakes were also shallow. This is still in the relatively abundant area of Qianmen Mountain in southern Hunan, and the situation in other places can be imagined. During the late Ming Dynasty, droughts, locust plagues, military disasters, and epidemics occurred almost every year in the northern part of the Yangtze River, and the areas involved became more extensive as it progressed. Hunan has a large population, the most densely populated feudal lords, and severe land consolidation. In the event of a major disaster, the Ming court was unable to provide relief, and it is unknown how many people would find themselves at a loss. No wonder Li Zicheng was able to sweep through Hunan this year, gaining a million-strong army of bandits and achieving great success with a sigh in his heart. Liu Sheng walked into the Mao family collection consisting of large houses and several streets. There are refugees on the road who bring their belongings to support the elderly and children, as well as those who can no longer walk and sell themselves by inserting a few thatches on the roadside. As for people with attractive faces and haggard appearance, they are all eye-catching. Some people, with their thin and weak bodies sticking out as if they were pregnant for several months, either have green eyes or lifeless eyes, which are even more eye-catching. Those who sell themselves mostly keep their heads down and remain silent. Only a few people occasionally raise their heads and shout in a pleading tone, with a small volume because they lack strength. As for those who sell themselves to bury their loved ones in movies and TV shows, Liu Sheng didn't see any of them. He suddenly realized that at this moment and here, the dead may not wait to be buried before they disappear, or perhaps even if they are buried, they will disappear. I heard that the drought in the west and north is much more severe than here, and some major rivers have bottomed out. I heard from the elderly that after the spring drought, there will be locust infestations. Nowadays, there are also military disasters everywhere, and epidemics are also frequent. How can we live these days? Alright, we're pretty good here. At least we'll work a little harder and barely survive. There are more and more refugees, but I haven't seen the government's relief efforts. Surviving. I see the difficulty. Listening to the discussions of some passers-by, Liu Sheng sighed inwardly, feeling even more that heaven had made him wear his room until the end of the Ming Dynasty to make a difference. After wandering around the Mao family, Liu Sheng finally returned to the North Street intersection. Because he found that there were the most people selling themselves here, it was convenient for him to choose people. Let go. I won't go with you. It's easy to bully Mao Senyi when he reneges on the agreed price. A quarrel earlier attracted some onlookers, and Liu Sheng also walked over. I saw a young girl who was about 12 or 13 years old, pulling with a middle-aged man. Behind the girl lay a woman with a yellowish complexion, cracked lips, messy hair, and an unclear appearance. On the other hand, the girl, although also with a earthy complexion, could vaguely see the beautiful features on Guazi's face. I only sell myself as a maid, not to go to the kiln. The girl had some strength and grabbed a tree stump, half lying on the ground, unwilling to leave. Seeing more and more people gathered around him, Mao Sanyi relaxed his hand and sneered, "Don't go to the kiln. Do you think it's so easy to be a maid in a wealthy family? If you want to sell yourself for 1 or 2 silver to buy medicine to save your mother, only I am willing to offer this price for the Mao family's collection." Upon hearing these words, the girl glanced at the woman behind her with a struggling expression on her face. At this moment, Liu Sheng noticed that the girl had handwriting left by branches, which was more than half indistinct, leaving only the words, "Save the mother," to be recognized. With a movement in his heart, he pushed aside the few people in front of him and asked in a loud voice, "Miss, can you read?" The girl glanced at Liu Sheng upon hearing the sound, probably feeling that he was dressed differently and had an extraordinary demeanor. She quickly replied, "Back to this master, I can read, do some arithmetic, and do laundry, cooking, and cleaning. I am very useful." Mao Sanyi, who was next to him, looked at Liu Sheng and frowned, saying, "Outsiders, are you trying to steal my goods from Mao Sanyi? I suggest you first inquire about how many of these Mao family members dare to offend me." Liu Sheng turned his head and smiled at Mao Sanyi, saying, "Mao Sanyi misunderstood. I'm here to send you money." "Sending money?" Liu Sheng said, "I just listened for a while. Did Mao Sanyi buy this girl and plan to resell it to the kiln? So what? I wonder how much money Mr. Mao can sell her for." Mao Sanye's eyes turned and he said, "How much to sell is my business. Why should I tell you?" At this moment, someone in the crowd spoke up and said, "The kiln can only buy people for a maximum of 3 to 5 taels." Upon hearing this, Mao Sanyi became angry and looked around the crowd, shouting angrily, Who dares to harm my good deeds?" Liu Sheng glanced at a figure who had withdrawn from the crowd, smiled, and said, "Mao Sanyi, I'll give you 4 taels, which can be considered as buying this girl from you. You don't have to argue with her here, and it will be troublesome to change hands later. How about that? This girl is beautiful and has lost 4 liang." Mao Sanyi did not conceal his greed in his eyes. Liu Sheng shook his head and said, "I still need to spend more money to buy her. It will actually cost 5 taels of silver. Look at this northern street corner, there are people selling themselves everywhere. People are not worth much these days. 5 taels of silver are already too much. If Master Mao doesn't want to, I won't mind this idle matter." After speaking, Liu Sheng pretended to leave. The selling girl's face was full of nervousness upon seeing this. After hesitating for a moment, Mao San finally grabbed Liu Sheng and said, "Forget it, just 4 liang. Here's the money." Liu Sheng took out 4 taels of silver and said, with the testimony of the villagers around him, "Mao Sanyi is also the leader of this Mao family collection. I believe he keeps his word." "That's right." Mao Sanyi was equivalent to picking up 4 taels of silver for nothing, and after hearing Liu Sheng's praise, he felt good. "Later, I would like to remind you that this little girl is not honest. If you buy her, go and establish a contract first." After finishing speaking, he took 2 attendants and hummed slang towards the market town. Liu Sheng looked at the selling girl and asked, "What's your name?" The girl stood up and bowed to Liu Sheng before saying, "Huiyan Gong, little girl Li Shangyun." Liu Sheng reached out and picked the thatch that had been inserted into Li Shangyun's head. This action frightened Li Shangyun to take a step back, only to realize that he had misunderstood Liu Sheng and his face turned red. But her face was covered in dust, and only she knew when she turned red. "You stay here first, and I'll come over when I stroll around. My name is Liu Sheng, and if you have anything, shout my name." After speaking, Liu Sheng pushed aside the crowd and walked out. He wants to find someone to come and establish a contract, and also needs to buy a few more useful people. Readers, gentlemen, please turn the page and follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Buying People's Hearts, Li Fuzi's Words, Seeking Further Reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Buying People's Hearts, Li Fuzi's Words, Seeking Further Reading. The naturally formed, human market at Beijiku turned around, and Liu Sheng quickly selected 3 more households to sell their bodies. The first couple were both present, looking in their 30s with 2 boys. However, their wife and youngest son were seriously ill, and the man wanted to sell themselves as servants together with their eldest son. The second household is also a married couple, younger, with a little girl and an old man. Both the little girl and the old man are sick. Women sell themselves, men are stonemasons, seeking employment at low prices. The third household consists of 2 single brothers, both in their 30s and 40s, with their elderly parents. My mother is seriously ill, and my father is also starving to the brink of death. 2 brothers, 1 carpenter and 1 bricklayer. A carpenter seeks employment, while a bricklayer is willing to sell himself as a servant. These 3 households, whether selling themselves or seeking employment, can all be solved with 1 or 2 taels of silver. Liu Sheng, along with the person who signed the contract, first packed the first 2 households, either bought or hired, and finally stopped in front of the 2 brothers. What do you call this, carpenter master? Liu Dechuan. Liu Sheng arched his hand and said, thanks to Master Liu's words just now, Mr. Mao didn't have the opportunity to extort me. Thank you very much. Liu Dechuan cautiously avoided and said, Mr. Liu, you don't need to thank us. We are from the same hometown as the mother and daughter of the Zhou family, and we dare not openly help each other. We can only remind them in secret. Liu Sheng smiled and said, I want to buy your brother and hire you for a long time. Come with me to work in the mountains, is that okay? In the mountains. After hearing these words and looking at Liu Sheng's tall and strong body, Liu Dechuan instinctively thought he was going to the bandit stronghold in the mountains. In the morning for 3 to 5 years, even if they were down to the point of selling themselves, the 2 brothers would not consider joining the bandits. But now, thinking about the scenes we have seen all the way south, and seeing our elderly parents who were starving to the brink of starvation after seeking medical treatment, Liu Dechuan and his younger brother Liu exchanged glances and gritted their teeth, saying, as long as we can keep our family alive, we are willing to follow Mr. Liu into the mountains. After packing these 3 households and establishing a contract with Li Shangyun, Liu Sheng bought 4 flatbed carts and asked them to take the patients and children to the medical center in the market town for treatment. According to the doctor's diagnosis, 3 of the 5 patients were starving, and they only need to drink a few pairs of soup and slowly recuperate for a few days to recover. Only the mother of the Liu brothers, Wan Shi, and the mother of Li Xianglan, Zhou Shi, are seriously ill. Dr. Liu Sheng said for a while, but he felt that one seemed to have pneumonia, while Zhou seemed to have a bad cold. If the 2 of them don't improve in the future, he may be able to take out drugs from later generations and give them a try. During the medical treatment, Liu Sheng took people to the nearby food shop to buy some congee for everyone to eat. After buying and hiring a whole family to pack, treating patients, and providing food, the 4 households and more than 10 people were grateful and regarded Liu Sheng as a benefactor. After finishing his illness and eating, Liu Sheng found a small courtyard called a homestay in the market town and took everyone to rest for the night. The next morning, Liu Sheng bought some supplies and a 5th cart before taking everyone to Qianmen Mountain. In order to deter refugees on the road and potential gangsters, Liu Sheng equipped the Liu brothers and men from the other 2 families with a machete that could both chop people and clear the way. About 20 miles away, Liu Sheng only took more than 3 hours to arrive. It took over 7 hours to walk back to the vicinity of Xiaoli village in Qianmen Mountain. Stop and rest. Liu Sheng called out and made all 5 flatbed trucks stop. There are still 5 or 6 miles of mountain roads to go to the destination, and it may take several hours to clear the way. Tonight, let's camp by the side of Xiaoli village. You guys rest for now, and I'll go to the village to do something. Liu Sheng said a word and then went to the village. He is not afraid of these people escaping. Every family held a personal contract in his hand. The Ming court did not allow slavery, but there were policies at the top and countermeasures at the bottom. Since the Qianmen Dynasty, many people have been using the names of adopted sons and daughters to raise slaves. In the end of this dynasty, which was characterized by the collapse of rituals and music, the court had lower control over local areas and naturally had looser control over the practice of enslavement. Some local governments even recognized the legality of private servants. So, the body deed in Liu Sheng's hand has a certain deterrent power for several companies. Finally, even if someone escapes, Liu Sheng's ability makes it easy to track them down. Zhou Ruinyang lifted her weak body from the cart as she watched Liu Sheng leave. Li Shangyun saw her on the side and quickly helped her stabilize. Zhou Ruinyang's illness is milder than that of the mother of the Liu brothers, Mrs. Luan. She woke up last night and has since recovered slightly. Upon learning that her daughter had sold herself into slavery to save him, she felt both heartbroken and helpless, and could only accept her fate in the end. However, now that Liu Sheng appeared to be taking them deep into the Qianmen Mountains, she had some doubts again. Shangyun, do you know what Mr. Liu is taking us into the mountain for? Li Shangyun whispered, I heard from Uncle Liu that he mostly wants to become a bandit in Qianmen Mountain. Upon hearing this, Zhou Ruinyang furrowed her brows and said, Shangyun, you are confused. The Li family is a pure family that has been farming and studying for generations, and your father passed the imperial examination and became the county magistrate. He died in battle with bandits. How can you join the bandits? Although Li Shangyun is only in her prime, her experience of fleeing from the Liu family in Hunan province to Tongbai in Nanyang has made her mature and independent. Upon hearing this, she said, Mother, I have already told you about my daughter's situation yesterday. If it weren't for Mr. Liu, my daughter would either have been sold into a kiln or could only have watched you die of illness. You remember the innocent family background of my Li family and the loyalty and good character of my father, but the court not only did not provide compensation, but also convicted my father of losing the city. What if the court treats my family like this and I am a bandit? Besides, my daughter noticed that Mr. Liu's entry into the mountain may not necessarily mean he wants to become a bandit. If he wants to become a bandit and there are so many refugees, he can plunder some. Why spend money to buy people and hire them? After hearing these words, Zhou Ruinyang remembered the actions of the court and was truly disappointed. She thought for a moment and said, Mr. Liu doesn't look like a villain, but what did he take us deep into Qianmen Mountain for? Li Shangyun often used other flatbed carts and said, he bought a lot of things for farming today, it looks like he's preparing to farm in the mountains. Planting in Qianmen Mountain. Zhou Ruinyang frowned even tighter upon hearing this. Li Chongzhen saw Liu Sheng for the third time at his doorstep, and finally he was no longer as scared as he was the first 2 times. I don't know what the hero is here for this time. Liu Sheng said, what kind of hero? This title doesn't sound good. My surname is Liu, my name is Sheng, and I was promoted to become wealthy. Let's call me Mr. Liu in the future. Upon hearing this, Li Chongzhen couldn't help but look up and down at Liu Sheng again. Seeing that his broad Taoist robe could not conceal his tall and burly figure, he felt that it was impossible to associate the person in front of him with the word, sir. Liu Sheng continued, I came this time to hire people from your village to help. Can you introduce someone who has prestige in the village and can speak his mind? I'll talk to him. Li Chongzhen thought for a moment and said, there are 30.3 households in our Xiaoli village, most of whom have the surname Li. If you want to say they have prestige, they are naturally our Li clan elders and village elders. This old Mr. Li is greedy for money and likes to haggle over details, making it difficult to speak. Mr. Li, the village elder, is a scholar, knowledgeable, and kind. The villagers prefer to listen to him. Liu Sheng smiled and said, "This is easy to handle. I'll just visit both of you. Immediately let Li Chongzhen lead the way and visit Li Fuzi at the east end of the village." Because unblocking relationships usually starts with ease and ends with difficulty. Taking care of the easy ones and then letting them connect and bridge the gap, making it less difficult for those who follow. Li Fuzi's family is one of the few brick and tile houses in the village, with 3 large rooms. They also built a small courtyard surrounded by green bricks, and there are 2 side rooms on both sides of the courtyard. However, the houses, walls, and courtyards have been looking dilapidated for some time now. Li Chongzhen knocked on the door and shouted, "Master Li, there's a guest who wants to see you." "Here we go." Someone answered, and the courtyard door was quickly opened. A middle-aged man wearing a shorts, barefoot, and with mud on his calves appeared in front of Liu Sheng. This person has a slightly refined appearance, but his skin is rough and slightly black. Coupled with this outfit, there is a big gap between him and Liu Sheng's imagined image of Li Fuzi. Li Chongzhen was clearly accustomed to it and introduced, "Master Li, this is Mr. Liu, the good person who exchanged cakes for my clothes. He said he wants to hire someone from our village to do something." Liu Sheng arched his hand and said, "I'm Liu Sheng. Master Li is polite." After looking at Liu Sheng curiously, Li Fuzi bowed back and said, "Friend Liu, you are polite. I am Li Chongwen." But when Li Chongwen heard Li Chonggen's address to Liu Sheng and saw that Liu Sheng was wearing a Taoist robe, he thought he was a scholar, which is why he called him a friend. Liu Sheng didn't explain and said directly, "It's too chaotic outside now. I want to open up land and farm in this mountain. I need some people to help me in the front. Xiaoli village is the closest village in the surrounding area. I just want to hire a few people from your village. Can Li Fuzi be a middle person? Pioneering and farming in Qianmen Mountain." Li Fuzi frowned slightly as he listened. Didn't Mr. Liu come to the mountain to check? The soil layer of Qianmen Mountain is shallow, with many exposed rocks, and the soil is already thin. The terrain is mostly steep mountains and deep valleys. With a few streams and valleys, but they have long been occupied by various villages. Where can Liu find a suitable place to go into the mountains? If there is no suitable land, it may be difficult to support the farmers with the income from farming. Besides, in recent years, there have been more and more bandits in Qianmen, and it is easy to be robbed when entering the mountains to cultivate land. I hope Liu friend can think carefully about it, seeking follow-up reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Hiring villagers and establishing fortresses in the wild, seeking follow-up. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 6. Hiring villagers and establishing fortresses in the wild, seeking follow-up. Although Liu Sheng did not come from a peasant background, he believed Li Chongwen's words. One thing, looking at Li Chongwen's appearance at this moment, one can tell that he is a farming and reading inheritor, not the kind of bookworm who doesn't know the way of farming. Secondly, there were not many villages in the central area of Mount Mu within a radius of more than 10 miles, which must be for a reason. The outside is so chaotic, and there are often droughts and military disasters. If Qianmen Mountain were suitable for farming, it would have been crowded with people long ago. How could it be so remote like now? However, his pioneering in the mountains is just a rhetoric, and what he truly relies on is the America behind the houses. Thank you very much for Li Fuzi's advice. However, I came to this mountain to cultivate land only to temporarily avoid military disasters. When the outside world is stable, I will go out of the mountain and support for a few years should be no problem. Upon hearing Liu Sheng's words, Li Chongwen sighed and said, "Since you insist, I won't advise you much. However, if you want to hire someone from our Xiaoli village, you still need to visit the sect elders again. With this intention in mind, please kindly introduce Li Fuzi. I have just returned from the field. My friend Liu, please come in and wait for me." Let me wash and change clothes before going out. Liu Sheng smiled and said, there's no need to go inside. I have to go explain to my people and come back later. After speaking, Liu Sheng took Li Chongzhen to the place outside the village where 5 flatbed trucks were parked. He selected a set of high-quality pens, ink, paper, and inkstones from the goods on the car, and made 2 pieces of Jinhua ham meat, big and small, wrapped in oil paper for Li Chongzhen to hold. Liu Sheng said, let's take this small piece as a gift for you. Take the large piece first, and I'll give it to Mr. Li. I can't do it. Li Chongzhen was a bit flattered, I'm just leading the way. How dare I ask for Mr. Liu's thank you gift? Don't be so motherly, just hold it for you. After Liu Sheng finished speaking, he advanced to the village with his pens, ink, paper, and inkstones wrapped together. Li Chongzhen followed behind and saw his wife looking out the door, so he called on his wife, Sun Shi, to bring back the small piece of ham. When Sun saw ham, he turned his worries into joy. Liu Sheng arrived at Li Fuzi's house and happened to see him go out. He handed him a gift and said, I came in a hurry just now and didn't bring a doorstep gift. Here is a pen, ink, paper, and inkstone. Please accept it, Li Fuzi. Li Chongwen didn't hesitate to say a word and casually took it, shouting into the room, Lingfei, come and take the things to the study. Hey! A crisp and pleasant voice came out, and a young girl dressed in emerald green walked quickly and took the pair of pens, ink, paper, and inkstones from Li Chongwen's hand. Li Chongwen did not mean to introduce a girl, but based on age, the girl should be his daughter. Xiaoli village was not big, and the 3 of them didn't walk much before reaching the southern end of the village. I saw that Mr. Li's house also had a courtyard wall, but it was about the same size as Mr. Li's house. The main house is also a 3-piece brick and tile house, with 2 wing rooms on the east and west sides of the front yard, and 2 rooms on the east and west sides of the backyard. Mr. Zong's name is Li Fuchang, who is 2 generations older than me. There are 10 or 20 households in the village that are tenants of his family. He is greedy for wealth and always haggles over every penny. Don't be too eager, Liu friend, or he will definitely take advantage of him. Before entering, Li Fuzi said such a thing, which surprised Liu Sheng quite a bit. Although the contact time was short, Li Fuzi's distinct personality has left an impression on Liu Sheng. Kind-hearted, upright, pragmatic, and not bound by courtesy. Make him quite fond of it. After knocking on the door and entering, the 3 of them met Li Fuchang in the courtyard, a slightly chubby man in his 40s. If it weren't for his small and crooked eyes, he looked more like a scholar than Li Fuzi. Oh my, why did Chongwen have the time to come to the second master's house? Who is this behind you? Li Fuchang spoke politely and warmly, but did not intend to invite the 3 of them into the room to sit down. Li Fuzi arched his hand and said, Second master, this is Liu's friend who wants to cultivate land in the mountains. After Li Fuzi finished speaking, Liu Sheng introduced himself and said, I am Liu Sheng, a person who has been promoted and made a fortune. When I first come to the door, I will prepare a small gift. Please accept it with a smile. Li Fuchang saw the whole Jinhua hem held by Li Chongzhen, his small eyes clearly lit up, and he smiled happily. Liu Gongzi, come and bring any gifts. Chongshun, come and take this ham to the cellar. After instructing people to collect the ham, Li Fuchang continued, let's go inside and talk. After entering the house and taking his seat, Li Fuchang spoke up and asked, where is Prince Liu planning to cultivate land in the mountains? Liu Sheng smiled and said, near Zushiding. Zushiding. Li Fuchang showed a clear expression of surprise and immediately smiled, that place is so good, it has a fairy-like aura. Li Chongwen couldn't help but say, Friend Liu, there are almost all rocks on the other side of Zushiding, so there is probably no place for cultivation. Before Liu Sheng could speak, Li Fuchang said, don't talk nonsense, Chongwen. Since Prince Liu is interested in that place, he must have his reasons. Perhaps he is planning to build a quarry. Lu Gongzi wants to hire people to help in our village, so naturally he can. However, the current busy farming season is not over yet, and the wages. Liu Sheng said, 21 a day, manage one lunch. Li Fuchang looked embarrassed upon hearing the words and said, 21, one meal, it's a bit short. I'm afraid not many villagers are willing to do it. Liu Sheng smiled and said, Master Li, don't lie to me. It's just some hard work. 21 a day is also a high salary outside. Lu Gongzi, outside is outside, inside the mountains is inside the mountains. Upon hearing these words, Liu Sheng stood up and said, since Mr. Li is unwilling to compromise, I will have to recruit refugees outside. Nowadays, there are refugees everywhere in the surrounding area, and providing some food can attract a large group of people. When it comes to disturbing the peace of your village, Mr. Li should not blame me. After speaking, Liu Sheng is leaving. Li Fuchang's eyelids twitched as he thought of the influx of numerous refugees, and he quickly shouted, don't worry, young Master Liu. We can discuss the matter of hiring workers. Well, if Lord Liu agrees to let me lead the villagers to work, I will come forward and persuade them. How is it going? Liu Sheng didn't expect Li Fuchang to propose such a condition. Although he couldn't figure out the purpose of Li Fuchang's son's entry for a moment, he was not afraid and immediately nodded, saying, okay. The next day, Li Rongguang and Li Chongzhen, the sons of Li Fuchang, led 10 men from Xiaoli village to walk into the mountains with Liu Sheng and others. Xiaoli village is actually located on the edge of the central area of Qianmen Mountain. Although the trees may not be very dense further inside, there are many dangerous peaks and valleys, rugged rocks, shrubs, and weeds, making it difficult for people to walk, let alone for wooden carts. Liu Sheng instructed everyone to first open a small path to the mountains, and as for the cart, it could only be stored in Xiaoli village for now. As for the 5 mules being pulled, they can drag supplies into the mountain with everyone. Although it was just opening up a convenient walking path, it took more than a dozen young people half a day to reach their destination. Liu Sheng said he built a village on the top of his ancestors to cultivate land, but in reality, his house is located on another shorter mountain peak next to him. Zushiding is over 800 meters high, and the peak where the house is located is estimated to be just over 600 meters, not particularly high. This mountain peak was originally unnamed, so Liu Sheng named it Fangshan. Arriving at a relatively flat and wide slope 200 to 300 meters away from the cave, Liu Sheng climbed onto a strange rock over 3 meters high and looked around. I saw a mountain spring flowing down several tens of meters away. Although it was small, like a natural water pipe, it could be considered a source of water. Several hundred meters away, there are multiple mountain springs converging into a small stream, but due to drought, the average depth is only 1 or 2 inches and about 3 feet wide. Surrounded by steep cliffs and deep ravines, it is estimated that only apes and some climbing experts can climb up the slope. The easiest way to get up is the small path he just opened up with his people. It can be imagined that if we build a mountain fortress here, it will definitely be difficult for one person to pass and 10,000 people will not be able to pass. Of course, what satisfied Liu Sheng the most was that in the future, a boardwalk-style path leading to the cave could be built here using stones and wooden frames. If we have to talk about the shortcomings, it is that this sloping land is still a bit small. Even with full development, it is estimated that 200 to 300 acres of construction land can be expanded. As for the land that can grow food, it is estimated that even 10 acres may not be enough to make up for it. But for Liu Sheng, who can travel to North America through the space gate, these are not problems. So Liu Sheng stood on the strange stone and said loudly, "Everyone, stop here. This is the place I have chosen to build the fortress. While it is still 1 or 2 hours before dark, everyone should work harder to clear a spot and set up a temporary camp." Li Rongguang, who was also looking at the surrounding terrain, smiled and said, "Brother Liu, you have a good eye. If we want to build a mountain fortress in this place, we only need dozens of people to guard it. Hundreds or even thousands of people may not be able to attack. What Brother Li said is, but it's not easy to build this mountain fortress. As he spoke, Liu Sheng jumped off a strange rock over 3 meters high, his tall body landing steadily, making Li Rongguang's eyes sparkle. Upon seeing this, Liu Sheng could recall Li Rongguang's performance all the way and guess some of the reasons why Li Fuchang asked Li Rongguang to lead the team. One of them is nothing more than to investigate his background and understand his plans after building a village and opening up land. Secondly, I want to train Li Rongguang. Although Li Rongguang is not the foolish son of the landlord family, he is obsessed with practicing martial arts and military affairs, and lacks interest in other things, which makes his mind appear simpler. Although he was leading the villagers out to work, he carried a waist knife and a bow and arrow on his back. Seeing Liu Sheng running through the mountains and forests like walking on flat ground, he immediately came over to chat as brothers. Nowadays, others have heard Liu Sheng say they want to establish a village and cultivate land here. The men in Xiaoli village have strange expressions, while Lu Duchuan and others have a worried expression, obviously not thinking this is a good place. Only Li Rongguang praises his good taste. After hesitating for a moment, Lu Duchuan came over and asked, "Master, I've seen everything along the way just now. There isn't much wasteland suitable for cultivation in a few miles around. Would it not be good to establish a stronghold here? The new book is in great need of collection and follow-up, please support the readers." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The host is determined to become a bandit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 8 talks about 3 things. Gathering soil to make fields, seeking follow-up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 talks about 3 things. Gathering soil to make fields, seeking follow-up reading. 5 wooden houses are arranged in a row facing north and south, with only 10 steps apart from each other. For safety reasons, Liu Sheng chose the westernmost house and arranged the Liu family at the easternmost point, with the other 3 families in the middle. Also, because Zhou Ruanyang and Li Shangyun were both female and literate, they were arranged by Liu Sheng to be next door to him. However, his arrangement had other implications in the eyes of others. Compared to others, the mother and daughter were indeed more outstanding in appearance, especially Li Shangyun, who, after grooming, was truly a beautiful embryo. Apart from the location, there is not much difference in the 5 wooden houses, so everyone is very happy after the allocation. If they continue to flee south, whether they can survive or not, even if they reach the place they want to settle down, it will be difficult for them to live in a house. Now that Liu Sheng has arrived in this Qianmen mountain, regardless of whether he will become a bandit in the future or whether he can grow food for export, at least he can now live in a house and have enough to eat every day. The Liu, Zhou, and Zheng families couldn't live such a life even before fleeing. After the 4 families simply moved into the wooden house, Liu Sheng called everyone to the open space in front of the house. Let me tell you a few things. Liu Sheng cleared his throat. First of all, I won't arrange any work this afternoon. Everyone should take advantage of this time to boil some hot water, take a hot shower, wash their clothes, and boil them again in boiling water. This is not only to look clean, but also to prevent epidemics. So, in the future, if you have the conditions and time, you must take hot baths frequently. In addition, wash your hands before meals, go to the thatched cottage when using the toilet, and do not defecate or urinate anywhere. Children can't teach. If adults can't remember and violate these rules, don't blame me for being impolite. Upon hearing these words, everyone looked surprised, including Zhou Ruanyang and Li Shangyun's mother and daughter. No one expected that Liu Sheng would first mention hygiene issues and still attach such importance to them. The second thing is that we have fewer people now and the mountains are not safe, so we should still eat big pot rice. I will try my best to arrange what everyone does every day. If you finish and do what I have arranged, and then go on to do something else, I won't stop you. The third thing is that young adults between the ages of 16 and 45, regardless of gender, must follow me for military training in the morning, with 1 hour for men and half an hour for women. The world is in chaos, and we may not be safe in the mountains. Practice it. If you encounter an enemy, you won't be powerless to fight back. The second thing was expected by everyone, and the third thing was also expected by everyone. Everyone speculates that Liu Sheng is going to become a bandit in this mountain. Of course, he must be able to fight, otherwise how can he steal money and food? After explaining these things, Liu Sheng let everyone go to work on their own, while he carried his equipment to explore the surrounding mountains and forests. As Liu Sheng left, while everyone was waiting for a big pot to boil hot water, they couldn't help but start discussing. "Brother Liu, do you think the boss can lead us to become bandits in Qianmen Mountain?" Zhou Maohua asked with some concern, chopping firewood. Liu Duchuan used the remaining wood he had cut a few days ago to make some simple furniture. He can also make good furniture, but these pieces of wood have not been processed, and it won't take long to make furniture. There's no need to make them too good. He heard the words and said, "Whether it's successful or not, we have no other way to choose." Zhou Maohua sighed at the words and said, "Ah, we are just this kind of person. We were all kind-hearted people before, how could we become bandits?" Upon hearing these words, Liu Duchuan laughed. "You don't have to worry about this. We are currently in a shortage of people, but won't our boss pull people anymore? As for not being able to deal with bandits properly, what are we afraid of with our boss leading us?" Everyone felt relieved when they remembered Liu Sheng's tall and strong body, as well as his skills demonstrated by running on the mountain road. At this moment, Liu who was building a stove in the shed, also spoke up, "I see that my boss must have been a capable hero before. Even 5 or 6 people may not be able to handle him." After recovering from her illness, Zhou Runyang, who was burning a fire, smiled and said, "It seems like you've met some hero before, Liu immediately blushed and said, "I have really seen heroes. When the adventurers came to Hunan, one of them came to our Liu family. It is said that the group that destroyed Mr. Chao's house in Huan village. I have seen them from afar, all riding horses with bows and swords on their backs, with a terrifying aura." Before the sun set, Liu Sheng carried a deer back to the southern slope of Fangshan, where the village was established. There are only a few large prey in Qianmen Mountain, and they are all ghosts and spirits. In addition to being well equipped and skilled, he also has a bit of luck to be able to capture this deer. It can be inferred that if a person wants to survive by hunting in this mountain, there is still a possibility, but if it's a group of people, it's not very realistic. However, if it were to be replaced by forests in North America, fishing and hunting would have great potential. The owner has returned. The owner shot a deer. This thing is rare now. The owner is really impressive. Seeing Liu Sheng returning, everyone busy greeted him one after another. Liu Sheng took the water deer to the kitchen and said to He Chun Fang, "Find someone to take care of the water deer, stew, stir-fry, and barbecue them all. In the evening, we will add a meal for everyone, and it will be a celebration of the completion of our village." "Hey!" He Chun Fang responded happily. Liu Sheng returned to his wooden house and saw Li Shangyun cleaning it. Originally, there was only one bed in the room, but now there is an extra cabinet, a table, and 2 chairs. Although they are all simple, they can definitely be used, and the house looks much better than before when it was empty. Seeing Liu Sheng enter, Li Shangyun blushed and said, "Boss, I smoked your room with mugwort and cleaned it again. This way, there will be fewer mosquitoes at night." After speaking quickly, he walked out and almost bumped into Liu Duchuan and He Guiyu who were about to enter. "Boss." The two of them bowed and saluted Liu Sheng. Liu Duchuan is fine, but He Guiyu is quite reserved. Liu Sheng sat on a small wooden table and gestured for the two of them to sit in chairs. The two of them exclaimed that they dare not. Liu Sheng didn't force himself, so he sat at a small table and asked, "What's up?" Liu Duchuan said, "Master, uncle he has some ideas about land reclamation." He Guiyu said, "Although Qianmen Mountain has more rocks and less land, as long as there is water, it is not impossible to cultivate the land. It just requires more effort to follow the method of gathering soil to make fields. Then, He Guiyu stumbled a bit and explained the method of gathering soil to make fields. Only then did Liu Sheng realize how advanced the ancestors of the late Ming Dynasty were in farming. Even in places like Qianmen Mountain, where there is no land, it can still create a field for you. Simply put, it means gathering the small amount of soil in the mountains and artificially building some fields along the stream. It's a bit similar to the terraced field model in the southwest, but it's more laborious and not much better. After all, Qianmen Mountain has more rocks and less land. Even if soil is gathered for farming, the soil will inevitably be thin. If it is produced with strong energy, the first 2 years of production may be acceptable, but later on, due to the depletion of soil resources, there will be a sharp reduction in income. After He Guiyu finished speaking, Lu Duchuan said, "Master, this method of gathering land for farming cannot be used in the mountains. But if we don't have many people, building 100 or 10 acres of land to avoid years of military disaster is enough." Liu Sheng's back is backed by North America, so naturally he doesn't appreciate this laborious and thankless method of gathering land for farming. But he knows that before taking everyone to North America, we need to give everyone a thought. When bandits plunder, after all, it is not stable. If we open up land and cultivate it, we can still survive. Most of these people will feel much more at ease in their hearts. The houses of later generations and the spatial doors leading to North America are extremely important secrets. Liu Sheng doesn't even have a trustworthy helper right now, so he naturally wouldn't lead these people to North America right away. At least he needs to take some time to investigate and understand each person's character and abilities. During this period, besides building a mountain fortress, it is not impossible for everyone to gather soil and cultivate fields. Once the fields are built, not only can they stabilize people's hearts, but they can also cover up their ears and eyes. With this in mind, Liu Sheng smiled and said, "It's indeed a good way to do it. However, Shanghai is the place where we can settle down, so it's better to do it as a top priority. Gathering soil and making fields comes in second place." He Guiyu wanted to say something more, but was stopped by Lu Duchuan. After walking a little further out of Liu Sheng's house, He Guiyu couldn't help but say, "Duchuan, why don't you let me talk? Let's prioritize the task of gathering soil for farming now. We can work harder, at least planting more than 10 acres of soybeans. It's great to wait until September to plant winter wheat together with other newly cultivated land." Lu Duchuan said, "Uncle He, what our boss said is also reasonable. In this chaotic era, the village is not well built. If there are thieves and bandits, how can we defend ourselves? If we lose our lives, even if we cultivate more land, it will be cheaper for others." He Guiyu sighed and said, "Alas, when will this world be peaceful?" Seeking collection, seeking follow-up reading. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Gathering, Night Raid, seeking follow-up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Gathering, Night Raid, seeking follow-up reading. On April 20th, the Great Aquarius Village is gathering. Although the world is difficult and the drought is becoming increasingly severe, even the rivers around Qianmen Mountain are running out of water. However, the people still have a demand for trade, and this market naturally continues to operate, with even many people coming to rush to the market. In the morning, Ma Baihu was sleeping soundly with his concubine in his arms when someone knocked on the door. Ma Baihu, who had been woken up, was furious and lay in bed shouting, "Which turtle grandson is bothering me with my dream?" "Master, it's me, Ma Gui." The voice of the butler Ma Gui came from outside the house. "There's something urgent happening in the village." "What's the big deal?" Ma Baihu still refused to get up and instead began to bully his sleeping concubine. "The strong man who sells glass bottles has come again." "What?" Ma Baihu clenched his hand and immediately made his concubine scream in agony. He woke up in shock, and his powder fist greeted Ma Baihu, spitting out a fragrant aroma. Ma Baihu didn't care and hurriedly got out of bed, put on clothes, and went out. That person came to find me? Ma Baihu asked nervously. Ma Guidao said, no, it was the servants who saw him come into the village to buy things and immediately notified me. I was thinking, last time he kidnapped you, the master, and we suffered a big loss. Don't show your face this time, let's take him down. We can both avenge him and retrieve the money he extorted. It's a win-win situation. After hearing this, Ma Baihu kicked Ma Gui's thigh lightly and lightly. If you're young, don't study humanities. Let's have the best of both worlds. Is that how the word is used? Ma Gui smiled and said, so this strong man. Ma Baihu grabbed his beard and pondered. He couldn't tell if Liu Sheng had brought his commitment letter with him or if he had any accomplices. So he waved his hand and said, forget it, this person is very powerful. Don't provoke him. After finishing speaking, he entered the room and closed the door, coaxing his mistress with a good voice and anger. Ma Gui eavesdropped on the wall for a while before leaving, grabbing the goat's beard. 100 households all said not to provoke Liu Sheng, so Ma Gui naturally wouldn't arrange for his servants to catch Liu Sheng anymore. He was also afraid of such strong people. But allowing Liu Sheng to wander around the village, he felt uneasy, so he called 2 servants to secretly watch Liu Sheng with him. Liu Sheng bought several large bags of rice and noodles, as well as some daily necessities such as cloth, oil and salt, in the village, and then called another group of people with 2 flatbed trucks. Li Rongguang. Why did this kid get mixed up with that strong guy? Ma Gui couldn't help but be surprised when he saw the young man leading the way. A servant said, butler, those drivers and loaders are all from Xiaoli village. I know. Ma Gui pinched the goatee on his chin and thought. Liu Sheng bought so much rice, flour, oil, and salt all at once. He probably didn't eat it alone. Did he live in Xiaoli village? Thinking so, Ma Gui decided to turn around and find a clever person to inquire about the situation in Xiaoli village. The next afternoon, Ma Baihu was taking a nap with his concubine when he was awakened by Ma Gui knocking on the door. After getting up, Ma Baihu eagerly waited for Ma Gui and said, Ma Gui, did you intentionally come to disturb my dream? Master misunderstood. I really have something urgent to report. Speak up. I heard about that strong man. Oh. Ma Baihu's anger suddenly dissipated and he let Ma Gui into the room. He urgently asked, what's all this news? Ma Guidao said, this person's name is Liu Sheng, and it seems that he came from northern Jili. A few days ago, he bought several households of refugees from the Mao family and said he wanted to cultivate land in the mountains to avoid war. Master, everyone in Xiaoli village calls him Liu Sheng Liu Master or Liu Dong's family, treating him as a wealthy gentry. But we can see clearly what he looked like when he came to the village to sell glass bottles, not much stronger than a beggar. Where did he get the money to buy refugees to reclaim land in the mountains? It's all extortion from the master. Thinking of the more than 500 taels of silver extorted by Liu Sheng, Ma Gui also felt a pang of heartache. Thinking of the promise letter, Ma Baihu felt helpless and discouraged, saying, what's the use of knowing his background? I have a handle on him, how dare I deal with him? Upon hearing this, Ma Gui leaned closer and whispered, the master cannot deal with him, but we can ask the Ma 7 brothers for help. Are you saying? Master, there are many bandits in the mountains these days. Isn't it normal for Liu Sheng to take the risk of losing land and cultivate land in the mountains, and be killed and robbed by bandits? Ma Qi and those people are illiterate. Once Liu Sheng dies, who will threaten you again? After hearing this, Ma Baihu stood up and walked a few steps left and right before finally making up his mind and saying, okay, Ma Qi's side will be contacted by you. Remember, after finishing the task, let him set fire and destroy the body. Before the sun set, Liu Sheng carried a few rabbits and turkeys back to the southern slope of Fangshan. The owner has returned. The boss is so powerful, he has hunted so many prey again. Boss, what kind of rabbit is this? Why is it so big? It looks different from the ones I've seen before. Liu who was building a stone reservoir, looked at the rabbit that Liu Sheng had brought back and was puzzled. Liu Sheng smiled and said, I don't know what kind of rabbit it is, maybe it came from somewhere else. In fact, this rabbit is one of the giant rabbits that he went to North America to hunt, weighing about 20 pounds each. He went to North America this time mainly to inspect the situation around the export, and hunting was a side trip. The prey on Qianmen Mountain is too scarce and too refined, and even he finds it difficult to harvest anything. Although the prey in North America is also wary of bipedal beasts, compared to those in the Ming Dynasty, they are ultimately better hunted and have a larger quantity. Liu Sheng placed the prey in the kitchen, and the busy Zhou Ruanyang, Li Shangyun, as well as the cook Zhou Daobao and Zhou Debail, curiously asked about rabbits and turkeys, all of which Liu Sheng casually dealt with. In recent days, Liu Shengshou's 4 households have been busy all day building the village, and the division of labor has gradually become clear. Liu Duchuan, along with 2 other young men, Zhou Maohua and Zheng Erzhu, spent the whole day logging to accumulate wood for the construction of the village. Liu Diyou and He Guiyu, along with Liu Erni and He Chunfang, are now taking out a few acres of vegetable fields next to the village. Living in the mountains, Liu Sheng can regularly go out to buy grain, meat can be obtained through fishing and hunting, but vegetables are the most reliable to grow on his own. So, the construction of vegetable fields should also take priority over the fields for grain cultivation. Although everyone is quite diligent in their work, there are still too few people. After several days, there is still no significant change on the southern slope of Fangshan. Therefore, Liu Sheng has been pondering these past few days whether in a few more days, he will go to the Mao family to recruit more people from different households. At night, Liu Sheng, who was asleep, first heard a ringing bell, and then heard the shouting of Liu There are thieves. Because the village had not yet been built, for the sake of everyone's safety, Liu Sheng not only arranged for Liu Duchuan, Liu Zhou Maohua, and Zheng Erzhu to take turns guarding the night, but also set up hidden thread bells on the necessary path to climb this slope. So, upon hearing this commotion, Liu Sheng, who was sleeping with his clothes closed, immediately got up and walked out of the door at the fastest speed possible. Just as he left, he saw Liu running towards him in panic. In the darkness, several figures had already passed through the narrow ramp and jumped to the edge of the fence. Under the moonlight, the sharp edges of several long knives were dazzling. These people remained silent, and with the help of those behind them, the person in front quickly climbed over a half-foot-high fence and then turned back to meet the people behind them, without showing any concern for Liu Sheng and others. Liu Sheng didn't know how many people there were on the other side, so he didn't dare to ask too much. Taking this opportunity, he quickly rushed to a pile of wood more than 20 steps away from this group, pulled out 2 revolvers, and started shooting. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. It seems that Ma Baihu missed me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. It seems that Ma Baihu missed me. Pop 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 pop. The crisp sound of gunfire echoed continuously, and as soon as it fell, the 3 of them had not figured out the situation before being shot and fell down. Another person was flipping over the fence and got stuck in fear for a moment. Liu Sheng was about to kill this person when he heard a startled sound. He felt a chill in his heart and immediately hid behind a pile of wood. Although he was wearing a bulletproof vest, he did not wear a helmet, afraid of being shot in the head. With a resounding sound, a feather arrow pierced into the wood. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Liu Sheng quickly climbed over the fence from one side and took out a bright flashlight to shine on the thief's side. Suddenly, 7 or 8 people exclaimed in surprise. My eyes! This person knows magic. Run! The appearance of gunshots originally surprised these thieves, but now they are suddenly blinded by a strong flashlight, causing them to be extremely frightened and only thinking of running for their lives. Liu Sheng took the opportunity to shoot and kill the person holding the bow and arrow, but cautiously did not pursue again. One is that he doesn't know the details of the thief, and the other is that he can't be separated from him on the southern slope. After other thieves fled, one person injured their thigh and got stuck on the fence, another one was pushed down and injured by a companion, and was unable to escape in time on the slope. Liu Sheng went over and captured these two people, dragging them to the open space in front of the wooden house. Liu Duchuan and other young men have lit torches and are waiting here with machetes. Liu felt ashamed and hesitated in the crowd, but still walked out with a glance from Liu Duchuan. He lowered his head and punched Liu Sheng. I was scared and ran away when I saw the thief. I couldn't fight the thief with my boss, so please punish him. Previously, people were more afraid of Liu Shengjing due to their personal attachment. That bit of fear was just because Liu Sheng was tall and strong, showing some good skills. Just now, Liu Sheng raised his hand and killed 3 thieves with a spell that seemed to still shine. Facing Liu Sheng again, everyone became much more afraid. We'll talk about your matter later. Liu Sheng waved his hand and gestured for Liu to retreat. He then looked at the 2 thieves and asked, which of you should explain it first? Upon hearing this, the short and sturdy man who was stuck on the wooden stake and had his thighs cut remained silent. The other tall and thin man with a twisted yellow face had a nervous and hesitant expression on his face, his gaze shifting between the short and strong man and Liu Sheng, clearly hesitating whether to speak. Liu Sheng kicked the yellow-faced man and said, "Come on." The yellow-faced man said, "We are bandits on the West Fenling. Xifanling." During this period, Liu Sheng was not wandering around, but had a clear understanding of the surrounding terrain and some place names. The West Fenling mentioned by the yellow-faced man is located more than 10 miles north of Fangshan, not far away. It's reasonable for the neighbors of the bandits to come and steal their homes, but it seems a bit fast. After all, they have only been standing here for half a month. How many people do you have, and who is in charge? Liu Sheng asked again. There are 30.3 people in our village, but there are only 15 men. There are 5 in charge, and the big head is Scar-Faced Horse 7. Speaking of this, the yellow-faced man hesitated slightly and pointed to the short and strong man, saying, he is the 5th in charge, named Wang Laowu. The short and strong man who had been quiet all along raised his fist to hit the yellow-faced man when he heard this. Liu Sheng kicked him, causing him to overturn and twist his face in pain. But he still glared angrily at the yellow-faced man and cursed, "Chen Sanpin, you bastard who swore in front of Guangdong, how dare you betray us? Be careful of the heavens and lightning." The yellow-faced man first showed a hint of shame and then said, 5 leaders, Ma Chi and the others have all died. If I don't say anything, I will also die. I still have my wife and son, and I don't want to die. Pooh! Wang Laowu stood up and spat at the yellow-faced man, "You cowardly coward who is afraid of death." Liu Sheng caught a glimpse of Wang Laowu's leg bleeding more and more, so he said to the Liu brothers, "Take a rope and tie him up." After Wang Laowu was tied up, Liu Sheng said again, "Zhou Ruanyang, come and take a look at this guy's leg injury, don't let him die." Zhou Ruanyang was visiting by the door when she heard this and opened the door. She furrowed her willow eyebrows and looked over the wound on Wang Laowu's thigh, then said, "Master, he's bleeding incessantly. He's injured his blood vessels, and the wound is too big. We don't have any healing medicine, so ordinary herbs and methods of cauterizing the wound may not be able to save him. If you can't save it, you're hopeless." Liu Sheng saw Wang Laowu's face turn white, but he gritted his teeth and remained silent. He asked Chen Sanpin, "As far as you know, what is the worst thing he has ever done?" Chen Sanpin hesitated for a moment and said, "I heard that the 5th Lord's family killed the landlord Mr. Zhang and his family of 3 in order to seek revenge. The rest is to follow the Grand Lord's family in some activities of kidnapping, extortion, blocking the way, and robbery. I haven't done anything too evil. Liu Sheng smiled and said, is it not evil enough to eliminate people from all over the family? Wang Laowu, who was originally feeling a bit wilted, roared angrily upon hearing these words, Zhang Baogui has ruined my mother-in-law's innocence. His unreasonable mother forced my mother-in-law to jump into a well and commit suicide without teaching her son a lesson. His father, Zhang Pipi, angered my father to death and falsely accused me of stealing. What's wrong with me killing him all over the house? I only hate them for one life, and I can't let him kill me 17 or 8 times. He became furious and his blood flow accelerated, causing blood to start gushing from his thighs. Upon seeing this, Liu Sheng quickly took out a dagger, cut through his clothes, and first made a simple compression hemostasis bandage. Then he instructed Zhou Ruanyang, first, boil water and scald a white cloth, clean his wound, and I will go back. After speaking, leaving the puzzled crowd behind, he went to the other side of the cave. He was used to this seemingly difficult mountain road and came back with a medical bag in less than 5 minutes. Zhou Ruanyang hasn't cleaned Wang Laowu's wound yet, so she quickly quickened her movements. Although the others were curious about where Liu Sheng had gone and what the strange package he had brought back was for, no one dared to ask more. But soon everyone knew what the package was for. Liu Sheng opened the package, first disinfected Wang Laowu's wound with alcohol, then took out a needle and thread to sew the wound, sprayed some medicine, and carefully wrapped it with a bandage. After this operation, Wang Laowu's wound immediately stopped bleeding. Speaking of which, Wang Laowu is indeed a bit tough. During the process of Liu Sheng suturing the wound, he surprisingly didn't make a sound. After Liu Sheng finished his work, he hoarsely said, I owe you 1 life. Liu Sheng said lightly, it's not 1, it's 2. Wang Laowu thought to himself that he followed his horse and attacked here for 7 nights. He should have been killed, but Liu Sheng didn't kill him and instead saved him. Didn't he just give him 2 lives? Thinking through this layer, Wang Laowu fell silent for a moment. Liu Sheng looked at Chen Sanpin and said, do you think Ma Qi and the others are all dead? Chen Sanpin nodded and said, the 4 who died were the 4 leaders. We, the 5 leaders of Xifanling, were brave bandits who dared to fight and kill. We were just some minions, and we spent most of our time farming on Xifanling. Only when the big leaders needed us did they come out and make a name for themselves. Liu Sheng asked Liu Duchuan and others to pull over the 4 corpses, and indeed found a strong man with a noticeable scar on his face inside. The other 3 were also robust, obviously eating better than Chen Sanpin, who was thin and tall. In the late Ming Dynasty, famine lasted for years, and even bandits found it difficult for everyone to have enough to eat. So, if these 4 can be raised so vigorously, they are likely the bandit leaders without a doubt. How did you think of a night raid here? Liu Sheng asked again. I don't know, Ma Qi asked us to come, so we came. Liu Sheng looked at Wang Laowu again and asked, you should know, right? Wang Laowu hesitated for a moment and said in a muffled voice, it was the job given by Ma Baihu. Ma Qi is his younger brother. Ma Baihu, Liu Sheng smiled. It seems that the last time we treated him not ruthlessly enough, it made him miss me. Upon hearing these words, Liu Duchuan and others were once again shocked. Unexpectedly, Liu Sheng was not even afraid of 100 households. To be precise, it is the 100 households master who is afraid of Liu Sheng. Otherwise, how could he secretly invite thieves and bandits to deal with Liu Sheng instead of openly doing so? Thinking about Liu Sheng's miraculous means of repelling bandits and rescuing people tonight, everyone felt even more unfathomable about this owner, and their hearts became even more revered. End of this chapter.